Barb.
Wendy.
Hey, did you send that correct finance? I didn't get that.
I did. This first thing this morning.
Huh.
My eyes are still really blurry from my eye appointment today. So I mean, I don't know if I can share the screen. I might be able to.
That would be ideal. Then people who aren't on the committee but are friends would be able to.
I'm gonna try it right now because I haven't had. Let me just pause here.
Okay, everybody, welcome. This is the annual Friends of the Manhan Rail Trail meeting at 7 p.m. November 23rd, 2020. All participants in this meeting are gathered remotely via Zoom. Remote public meetings during COVID-19 pandemic are the result of the executive order by Governor Baker on March 12, 2020, allowing us to do so. Please remain on mute until recognized by the chair. The meeting is now called to order. We had to read that. Also, I wanted to mention that this meeting is required by the government so that we can maintain our nonprofit 501c3 status. So, but anybody, well, everyone, we're happy to have you come, and we hope that if we have any visitors here, that they feel free to make comments or ask questions or make suggestions. So we're just going to do some little business items here, and then we'll get to the more interesting stuff. One of the things we have to do is elect our officers and our board members. So why don't we start with that? Currently, the board consists of the president, that's myself, Wendy Hammerly. Barbara, if you can raise your hand, she's the treasurer. Steve Donnelly is the secretary. And then we have 6 directors, Peter Brooks, who I don't think is with us tonight, John Bader, Ralph Sturgeon, John Lucido. John, can you raise your hand? Okay, and Liz Sturgeon is here with us. Okay. So do I have anyone who would like to make a nomination to any of these positions? Feel free to jump in.
Yes, I'm trying to find the list again. Do I have to do it one at a time?
No, I think you can do it as a slate, right?
Yeah. Did you want to nominate somebody?
I wanted to nominate you as president. I wanted to nominate all the same people.
Oh.
Assuming you all wanted to be nominated.
Yeah.
I haven't heard from anybody that they wanted out, so I'm assuming everyone's willing to stay with it for another year. Is that correct?
You know, what else do we have to do now? You know.
All right.
All right. So is there any discussion or is there going to be a motion to, I guess, retain the existing slate? Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to retain the existing slate as they're doing a terrific job.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, John. All right. Motions. Anybody opposed? Anybody? Everyone for?
Aye.
Okay. All right. I guess that passed. Let's see. I guess we need to approve the minutes. Has anybody had a chance to look at the minutes from last year's meeting? And
I sent it with the agenda, I'm pretty sure. Yep.
Yeah. Anybody have any corrections, or should somebody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the 2019 annual meeting.
Second? Was that Liz?
Second.
Oh,
David.
Okay, David, thank you. All right, Barbara, you can make your.
We have to take a vote.
Oh, we have to take a vote. Anybody, all in favor of accepting the motion on the minutes? Say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. All right, that passed. And Barb, if you want to go ahead with the treasurer's report, and if you want to try and share your screen, if not, I can try and do it.
Can you do it? Because of the way it is.
Okay.
I went to the eye doctor today, so I can't read my paper. So we're gonna try
Oh,
to share
did
it on
they
the.
dilate your pupils?
Yes,
No.
yes. So it's still blurry.
All right, so let me see if I can do this. Share screen. Treasurer's report. Okay, can everybody see the treasurer's report?
Not yet, but it has, yeah.
There it is.
Oh. There it is. Okay. All right, Barb.
Yeah, I still can't read it. It's still really little.
I don't know if I can make it any bigger.
Barb, why do we have a zero balance in the account?
Oh, gee, I went on that trip to Norway last year, you know.
Barb, do you want one of us to read it? Then you can talk about it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've got the balance from the money market and the business checking. Those are our two accounts. But it's very similar. We're very stable from last year. What is there? We're at 39,786.
That's correct.
Okay, so this year the dues, very, very similar to what we took in last year. The mill owners have all paid up. They're $1,000 each.
Wow, great.
The city, for our budget, the city puts in $2,500, and I just got the check today. So that isn't reflected on this because I just did this yesterday. The bank interest is from the money market. As far as expenses this year, it was pretty straightforward with our dues to the Chamber of Commerce, our state forms, and then otherwise just some trail supplies and the mowing and the trash pickup and things like that. It was a pretty, straightforward year. There were no extra things purchased, no, benches or kiosks or anything really.
Barb, was most of that trail work, tree removal, would you say?
No, most of it was mowing.
Okay.
Oh,
Mowing and trash pickup was and some tree work, but most of it was mowing and trash pickup. Believe it or not. Yeah.
And we had the lines redone.
That was the year before.
wow.
Well, let me double check on that.
I thought it was, yeah, maybe it was.
Oh no, it was. That was $850. And that was it was actually last September.
Okay.
That's not right. I'm looking at the wrong report, sorry. So it was actually the year before. Yep, it was in last year's report.
And we didn't do any digging up of pavement and replacing of pavement this year? Okay.
The only thing we did that was even slightly different was fix those benches.
Oh, right.
Otherwise, it is all mowing and trash pickup. Yep.
Any other questions about the finance report? Any comments? No?
I gotta
I
pay
just
my,
had a quick question. Is there one less mill owner now? Is that why it went from 4,000 to 3,000?
The mill, no, what happened last year is one of them crossed over the years. So one of the mill owners was late last year or early, I can't remember which, but we should get $3,000 a year for the mill owners, and the 4,000, I think somebody either they must have paid late, and so it was paid within 1 year.
I remember that you had trouble tracking down,
Yes.
you mentioned that like 3 or 4 meetings in a row and it finally came through.
Yep. Yeah, but
Is
this
that
year,
also why the city support is
Yes.
5,000 in
Yeah.
2019? That
Yep.
was 2018 was late?
it was, yep.
Okay.
And it could, next year, we could end up with 5,000 in there because we just got the $2,500 today. And if they pay early next year, we could see the same thing of it showing up in one friend's report.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
So if we haven't paid our dues yet, we need to do that.
Yes,
Correct.
please do.
Yes. I need to do mine.
Okay, Barb, do we need to make a motion to accept your report?
Yes.
Okay, does
Yep.
that, who would like to make that motion?
I move we accept the treasurer's report.
Is
As
there a
presented.
second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Anybody opposed?
Who was the voice that seconded?
I did.
John Lucido.
Okay, hi, John. Okay. All right, okay. When the report was up, I couldn't see everyone, so.
We're back.
Yeah.
Okay, so that motion passed. Thanks, Barb, for your hard work on taking care of the money. The only other thing I wanted to mention, a couple of highlights and what we're looking ahead to do in the next year. So basically this year, we did have some really good news. In October, the Manhan Rail Trail was designated as a National Recreation Trail by the Department of Interior. Yay,
Great.
that's really good. And also in July, we were designated as part of the New England Trail Network, which is another trail system. So both of those designations are feathers in our cap.
Yeah.
Hi, Peter, we see you're joining us. Hope you can hear us. We also joined with Mass Bike. We handed out some bikes, lights and bells. That was just last week, and that was really a great thing. People seem to really appreciate that. Also, we are participating in the revision of the Recreation and Open Space Revitalization Plan. And Jeff is on the line with us, so he's in charge of that basically. But the rail trail is an important piece of that. And so we are advocating strongly for that, mostly for the connections and the expansions of the little connectors through that master plan revision. We are also working with other trails from Northampton to New Haven. I think we have two members, Liz and Steve, who are part of that organization to try to share ideas and plan and market in one cohesive group, as opposed to each little town trying to do their own trail marketing and their own trail planning, is to try to work together. So that's a great initiative. And as Barbara mentioned, we had a couple of volunteers that did an amazing job refinishing a couple of those old benches along the trail, which were donated, what, like 30 years ago, or 20 years ago. So those have lasted quite a long time, and they really needed some redoing. So thanks to everybody who did that. Looking ahead, we're obviously continuing our plans to try to expand the trail, make connections, especially to the parks, the schools, and neighborhoods that are, lacking some kind of easy access to the rail trail. We're also working with Williston, and John Lucido can speak to this, to try to get lights along the trail in the section that is adjacent to the campus. And we are at least broaching the topic with the city about eventually taking over the funding and management of the rail trail, as we find it to be increasingly challenging as volunteers to do that effectively. So that is pretty much all I have. So I'll open it up to the floor with comments, questions, updates from anybody.
I wonder maybe if Jeff, if he could, so he doesn't have to stay any longer than he has to,
Sure.
give us some updates.
Nope, thanks.
Go ahead.
I'm definitely good for a little while, so I don't rush on my account. There are some things I think we've all, hopefully the committee has talked about and is aware of. I mean, the Ferry Street project is what we're calling substantially complete. But I think Stephen has been the one emailing, and there are a lot of finishing touches that are still, not complete. And what I think in my email, I mean, we pushed the contractor really hard to open Ferry Street to vehicular traffic. That was a big issue. If you look at social media, people have no idea what was actually happening before the road could open. But that was a huge concerted effort to get the road open. So, a couple of things that are expected to happen still before winter sets in is the lighting. We kept the same lighting fixtures as behind the mills. So it's the black, the poles with the decorative fixtures. Those should come up pretty soon. That is definitely one thing that got affected by COVID-19 is whatever manufacturing company was producing the lights, they hit all kinds of delays. But our expectation is that those should go up before winter sets in. And just the other day, the utility companies, mainly Verizon, finally came and removed the actual above ground telephone poles along Ferry Street. And it's a huge, amazing feature of that part of the project to have buried those utility lines. And when you go down there and the poles are gone and the wires are gone, it's impressive. But I think there were a couple of really important concerns that got raised in terms of lighting behind the mills that was not functioning. And I reached out to Jessica Allen and just got some direction on where those documents reside. And it is a city responsibility to maintain those lights. So I communicated with the new DPW director, and they're going to start to look into it. But I think they're sort of still on a staggered schedule with staff. So it's something that's going to take a little bit more time. I think it's unfortunate that obviously it's dark out and people might still be using the path and the lights aren't lit, but I think it's been observed as an issue. Some of the final signage that is important for the rail trail crossing at Ferry Street, I think the last time I checked was the other day, the stop signs were up again, and the rectangular rapid flashing beacons were installed. So a lot of that work has been completed. In terms of accomplishments, I really do think that upgrading that crossing at Ferry Street is a huge accomplishment. And I think if we look ahead to the next, in 2 years when Union Street is reconstructed and that crossing is upgraded to the way that it should be, the two major crossings of the rail trail will be upgraded and will be really significantly enhanced, which I think is going to be awesome for the trail users. I had a couple other things to mention, and I don't want to be just taking up too much of your time, but I've communicated with Scott a couple times and been out and about, and we tried the bike lane was a sort of an experiment to see what it would be like to put a bike lane up Wilson Ave to connect to the high school. And I wrote the email to the group, so some of you probably understand this, but it didn't get all positive reviews. I think I would say that residents in the area had a negative reaction overall, and drivers of vehicles also had a negative reaction to the reduction in the travel lane. And I don't know that it was totally unanticipated, but I think the level of the negative reaction was more than I anticipated. But I think for me, all the things that I'm doing now on behalf of the city are kind of trying to learn as much as possible and be preparing for bigger projects. And some of the bigger projects that I am mentally preparing for and practicing by all these grants, I see all working towards trying to make the connection to the new school, whether it's from the rail trail to the school and from the plains to the school. It's kind of project project 1 and 2, and then the third project that's, you know, really big and would take a lot of practice and a lot of funding and a lot of work is the idea of a bridge over Lower Mill Pond. All of those connections have come up in the open space and recreation plan in the survey. So what I've been really trying to do is build us some foundational documents, some baseline documents that will help us chart the course to make these bigger connections and maybe add these connectors over the next couple of years. Because that's what the grant funding sources really look for, sort of a little bit of the background assessments. Then they look for community support for the ideas of these projects. And I think that's where we're at right now, is building the community support. And the biggest leap for any of those projects is coming up with preliminary design plans. And that will probably be the next sort of phase that we would embark on, is potentially having, you know, considering CPA funds to come up with preliminary design plans and cost estimates for any one of those projects. That's kind of the next step, because once we have that, then we are positioned really well to apply for bigger grant funding sources to actually construct any of those connections, whichever, you know, would rise to the top. In my brief time, in my experience so far, that's what I found, is that most of these funding sources don't really want to fund preliminary design stages of the work. So that's kind of one of the biggest hurdles that we would see for bigger projects and bigger connections, is trying to get some funding for the designs and the cost estimates, and then we're positioned to apply for you know, larger pots of money to actually construct things. The two other things that are relatively new information that I wanted to pass along at this point was, we did learn that the same funding source for Union Street is called the TIP. It's the Transportation Improvement Program. So it's through Mass DOT, and they have a running list of projects. And, you know, the mayor and the city engineer are involved with keeping Union Street on the list and high on the list. But we did become aware of another project that is on the list, is I guess it would be called a bike path connection along Route 5. And so our early understanding of the project is to connect the Route 5 section of the rail trail down Route 5. You know, it's on the other side from the railroad tracks. It's on I guess it's on like the Oxbow side, and it would run the length of Route 5 to Atwood Drive, which is in Northampton, where they've built those 3 medical facilities. So it's not really clear to me how it got on the list, but it's on the Mass DOT tip list. I would say it's within 5 years that project would come to fruition. And it's exciting for a number of reasons, obviously, because it would bring that, it's a really important connection for people who want to get to the end of East Street, and then what do you do from there? But in my research, I found the original set of rail trail plans for when that section was added, and there was a proposed parking area shown on those plans. And I took a picture of it, and I snapped it, and I got it from the city engineer, and it went to Mass DOT, and they were happy to have received it. And the anecdotal word was that they were going to try to incorporate the parking area into this TIP project, because it wasn't part of it. So they were going to bring the rail trail across the bridge past the boat launch, and then just land it at the rail trail. And then now we hopefully will see, and I hope the committee feels like this is a good thing, but I think formalizing the parking over there would be really important, and it would be Mass DOT property. I think that was one of the biggest constraints, is that when you're standing out there at the parking lot now at the end of East Street, it's almost all entirely Mass DOT controlled. The city doesn't really own very much of that. And so if Mass DOT is willing to pick that up as part of their project and create a formal parking area, that would be a really important step, I think, at that end of the trail.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a quick question. Is that little connector to Atwood Drive proposed to be off-road or a bike lane?
It would be off-road.
Oh, wow.
Yep. It would be adjacent and separate from Route 5.
Wow.
Would
Yeah.
it be on the track side?
No, the plan it really, it's hard to call it a plan. It was a set of aerial photographs with sort of, some markings on it, but it was all on the Oxbow side.
Wow.
Though I guess the water side, if you will. So I think we will learn more about that as we go, but I really, when I was looking at the plans and saw that the parking area had originally been proposed and probably cut for budgetary purposes or ownership questions, really wanted to try to push to see if DOT would pick that up, and they seemed willing and interested in creating the parking area there. So I think that's kind of sharing information that I'm not sure that many people know, and it was reasonable in the past 2 months we really sort of uncovered some of this information.
Yeah, that's good news.
I think it's really good news. And the other thing that I wanted to, I guess, I wanted to talk to I don't know if this is the actual rail trail committee or the friends of, but the city is in discussions with the owners of Ferry Street, so the One Ferry Street project. And as part of those discussions, they are asking for some easements to cross over portions of the bike path. And I think they would be for utility work and tree clearing and things like that. But one of the questions that has come up was the potential to close the bike path if there were a more substantial project. And that was something that we worked hard with the contractor for the Mass Works project to keep it open to the maximum extent possible. And I do know that there was probably some times that it was inconvenient for people to get kind of over Ferry Street, but I didn't know what the reaction would be and where to go with this information, Barbara. I don't know if this is more appropriate to bring to the committee at another meeting, but that was something that we're seeing as a request that to accommodate future work at Ferry Street. So what you're seeing at Ferry Street is the first building, and there's 6 buildings. So over the next 10 years, they're envisioning the potential need at some point to close the rail trail temporarily. And that was something that I didn't know what to do with that information.
I guess my question would be, and it would be impossible to know now, is like, what do you mean by temporarily closing the bike path? I mean, just for a day or weeks, or, that, I think that's the big question.
Yeah. I will be candid and honest. In the first couple of discussions we had, we talked about 5 days, and it wasn't clear that was going to be enough in terms of what the owner developer would be looking for. But that was where, I think there's some discretion and some, it's not clear who, if other than city council, would approve that easement, in that kind of language. But we would want the rail trail committee's participation in that. But 5 days seemed to be a threshold.
Temporary easement, or, I mean.
Yep, I don't know the details of it yet, but that was one of the things was we worked really hard to keep the path open for this infrastructure work. I think we'll face a similar question when Union Street goes under construction, that there would be some period of time that the trail might need to be rerouted slightly. But I think for Union Street, it's a little bit easier to get the connection back. If it's easier. Whereas that section of Ferry Street, you would trace back a detour quite substantially and have to really rework, people walking, people biking, and that sort of thing.
I think it's also important to figure out exactly where they want to close it to. I think it would be much worse if they had to close it before the fork. But I'm thinking a lot of the work that they need to do is probably after the fork on the section that goes to Route 5. So if they had to close the section to Route 5 but could keep the fork to Northampton open, that wouldn't be quite as bad. And obviously rerouting that Route 5 section is more of a challenge because you have to go all the way down Ferry Street and way around to get back on the trail. But so those are some questions for you to bring up when it comes closer.
Yeah, and I apologize I didn't know. I mean, I rarely get to come to your meetings, so I mean, I'm willing to, if it's more appropriate, if you guys are going to have a December meeting of the rail trail committee, then maybe I can bring it then, and we can talk about it and have it on the agenda and talk about it more in depth.
Yeah, we lots of times we'll skip December, just so you know. Yeah.
wanted to respond, Jeff, to what you were saying in your, rundown of projects there. And first, just want to, say thank you to your commitment to making these things happen. To hear, the city planner committed to connecting the paths to the schools, and really making, bike infrastructure a major part of the city is really important. So it's great to hear. I also, just as far as that, the Williston path in particular, I just wanted to add, I know we communicated a little bit, but I just want to add in sort of, I'd love to get sort of the committee's input on this too. But, I feel like with that project there were some issues that could be resolved, and I wouldn't want that experience to sour you on the idea of separated bike paths adjacent with streets, because I really feel like that, like we've got an opportunity in Easthampton we have like a downtown core, and to really see like where cities, progressive cities across the country are really seeing, sort of transformational change is when you can get people that don't really feel comfortable on a bike.
I don't know, did Scott freeze?
Yes.
Oh,
You just froze, Scott. I don't know if you can refresh your.
Oh, sorry, you froze for a moment. I don't know where I got cut off. Are you there?
Yeah, we're here now. Go ahead.
Progressive communities.
Oh, shoot. I told you the whole key for progressive communities. You missed it. I was just saying that, progressive communities are where they're really seeing like transformational change in how people use their city by bike, is when they're creating spaces for people that don't feel that comfortable biking. So it's not like on Williston Ave, I'm comfortable biking on Williston Ave. Like putting that path in isn't gonna change the game for me. But when you really want to raise the participation in biking in an urban core, which I think in Easthampton, like in the center city, we sort of have, getting that separated space really does create that for people that are not used to it. And I think we see that on the Manhan. If you go down, you'll see people, little kids, people in their 70s, 80s, using the trail that aren't biking in other places. And so that structure, I think, is going to be really important as we, sort of speak to some of those projects that you're looking ahead to. And I think there's ways, I totally am sensitive to the response that people have had. I think there's ways to mitigate that significantly. So I just want to basically say that, because I know you mentioned something about, should it be lanes or paths? And I think that structure is going to prove to be really important. And if well connected with the existing path, I think will be a very different experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that's helpful information, and I really just took what the committee was working on in that 2017 letter, and really we had such a small window of time with that grant, so that was one of the hardest parts about it, was really just went for it based on kind of knowing that had been an objective. I agree with Scott. We've chatted a couple times. There could have been a couple of different things that could have been done a little bit better. I think it started to occur to me as it was unfolding that the many negative effects of COVID-19 was that there was going to be no high school kids going to the property, which I think just didn't help, because I think that was really one of the intents of moving the lane to one side and having it two ways. Was the vision that I had was, especially in the afternoon, there could have been a steady flow of school age children going down there and really showing how much it could have got used. So we didn't really get to collect any kind of anecdotal data from that, because the school was obviously closed. The other thing, I would want to circle back. Things have been going so fast that it's really hard to know what information to share when, but there's two real studies that I initiated kind of based on knowing the general goals of this committee and the goals of the open space plan and the goals of the master plan, which is having the Conway School looked at the big picture of trying to connect residents to the school. The new school property has really this, it's a focal point to achieve, if people can get there, then we're connecting neighborhoods. And then from there, if you think about that as a very broad report, and then from there are these mini studies that would have to happen to really hone in a little bit more specific areas, was the idea of the connection from the Plains area to the school. So I hired them a second time to look more closely at a specific, route that could be taken from Plain Street to the new school. And I think over the next, 2 years, there should probably be 2 or 3 other studies, at least 2 other studies that would look at other possible routes in more detail to build us this set of information that will all be used to actually seek funding for those. So it's something that I'm really interested in, and a lot of the things I'm doing now are kind of practice at some of these bigger projects and figuring out what works and what doesn't. I think once the open space plan is done, I think the update, I think that will be a document that would be important for this group to be aware of, and actually probably not before it's done. Probably there will be a first draft, and there'll be one more community meeting, and actually that would probably be the better time for this committee to really look at making sure that the goals of the Manhan Rail Trail Committee are sort of embedded in that open space plan, because I think that's going to be the best way for us to approach making these connections over time. I think Williston is a partner in one of the routes. I think getting a partner with Williston and being able to connect, people from the rail trail, if you think from the football field, generally speaking, up to their athletic fields, which is basically adjacent to Nonotuck. I think if we have a partner in making that connection, that's one of the most difficult ones that we have to make in the future, is connecting somehow from the rail trail to Nonotuck. And if we do that, I think getting from Nonotuck to the new school is actually not as complicated. So it's not totally coherent at the moment, but I think the Conway School report from the first one, the emerging pathways, is really kind of a key document for this group to be aware of and make sure that you see the value in it, because I think it was really taking all the things that have been said, the idea of connecting to the new school, and really starting to put some pen to paper and draw some maps and get it documented.
So Jeff, is the trail now that is right along the pond, is that a bike trail or is that a wide sidewalk?
That's a great question. I mean, the way it was described throughout the planning process and the funding was a multi-use path.
Great.
And, part of that project is not fully realized yet, which is if you are on the bike path and you go down Ferry Street along Lower Mill Pond, there's a dam there. There's water and dams make for bigger regulatory challenges. So originally it was gonna go a little bit further, and then a second or third phase of the Ferry Street redevelopment includes a bike path connection across the back of the Ferry Street project. So there is a way that right now it looks incomplete and you run down to the end and it stops. There is another opportunity to cross Ferry Street and go up the hill slightly and make another bike path connection. And the vision for that is that it would help connect the Parsons Street neighborhood, and all the residents who live in the Parsons Street area could then go down Parsons Street. They do have to cross Parsons, but then there will be a quicker access point to the rail trail that will help connect that neighborhood. That's a future phase. And while I'm ranting, there is a plan taking shape to redo the intersection at Parsons and Ferry Street. So for vehicles it's terrible, and for pedestrians it's dangerous. And so there is a discussion that started about looking at redesigning that, making it easier to turn left in a vehicle, but also make it easier for pedestrians to get from Parsons Street to that crosswalk on the other side. So that's another important part that would incorporate pedestrian safety improvements there as well.
That's really needed there.
Yeah.
It is. It's pretty desperate. Yeah.
Terrible intersection.
The mayor has been agreeable to using the cannabis impact fees from INSA as a way to fund both the design and the potential construction of the intersection improvements. And so it's important to mention, because I think if you're a pedestrian in the Parsons Street area or New City, it's really hard to get to the bike path right now.
Can I just for a moment circle back to the lighting issue? And I just hope you can convey to who's ever going to do this. So there's like about 6 lights out in a row. It's quite a long section. And it's in a section where now people are used to it being lit, and it's not. So people don't have to, normally think about having a light with them or anything. And it's a long enough, I don't know if you've ever been on a bike trail when there's no lights, but it's long enough so that it's like driving in a heavy fog. You're always afraid you're gonna bump into someone in front of you, or someone is gonna come and plow in from behind you, because that's how bad the visibility is. So if they're thinking, oh, a couple of lights are out, big deal, they gotta know this really is a safety issue. Okay. And I just do have one other thing about the finishing touches on the project. They took away the boulders that were there near the parking lot, and people are crossing. Someone drove right in front of me when I was on the trail and crossed.
Yeah, I agree. That's a big problem, and I understand why it started to happen when Ferry Street was closed and there was contractors and people trying to access to park, and that was one thing. But yeah, now that Ferry Street's back open, yeah, I will work on that myself and figure out how to resolve that and get those boulders back. It's a problem, I agree. And that one's a little bit easier. I can work on that one. The electrical contractor, the subcontractor of the city, DPW, is harder, but maybe Barbara, if you see the DPW director, you can talk to him as well. I think he's been very great and responsive. It's just, I have heard him say a couple of times that right now, due to COVID, it's staggered crews and they're so busy trying to get ready for winter. But that's not really an excuse. It's just something to just know that they're working at like half staff in DPW right now.
Yeah, I actually went down and talked to them about it the other day, and they have to figure out first what's going on, and either I guess there's a company that could come out and take a look at it, but just to take a look at it, it's going to be like $3,000. But so they were hoping that Whiteley would be able to go over there and see what it is. Hopefully it's not anything underground. That wouldn't be good, but I did go down and they're very aware of it, and hopefully but he said the same thing, that staffing is really an issue in his department right now. So
Jeff, do we know that the lights went out as a result of the project?
No.
Was it definitely related, or is it unrelated?
No, it's not even close.
Yeah, I believe it's unrelated to the
Okay.
to the Ferry Street project. Yeah.
I was told it was like from INSA down towards Eastworks. Is that?
Yeah.
Is that
No,
accurate?
it's right. It's from INSA to the southern point of the mills, right? So eastwards, yeah. And it's also the lights going into the mill as well as, over the trail. So I'm surprised the mill owners, I would think INSA would be screaming about it.
Actually, I did get a call from the Keystone building. They called me to say, "Oh, did you know the lights were out?"
Huh.
So they called asking about it too. So
Okay.
Jeff, aren't those lights powered by the mills? The breakers have to be inside the mills, right?
I don't think so. I think that there's transformers back there, and I think the utility, I don't have it. I have not been able to find the exact easement language, but I was told that back row of lighting is city owned. it's another question for DPW is they pay electric bills to Eversource, and so it's tracking down which utility that is. I don't have a lot of answers. It's definitely not my area of expertise, but I do know that it will get looked at. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take, and I don't have any much.
Yeah,
more
because it
information.
sounds like it's a circuit breaker issue.
That would be the best case scenario, is if it's something, kind of easy or straightforward. I think like Barbara said, if it's a problem underground, that's, and luckily it's a lot of, what I have learned from looking at the Ferry Street project is a lot of conduit. So it's a lot of straight run of just lines. And there hasn't really been disturbance or new projects or anything over there.
Right.
So hopefully it's something above ground and it's something, something obvious or a little bit easier to tackle. That would be the ideal scenario.
Jeff, going back to the issue of closing off the bike trail. I think one factor that we would want information on is what time of year they're talking about. Because if they're talking about a week in February, that's probably not a big deal. If they're talking about a week in July, that's a huge deal.
Yep.
That makes sense to me. I appreciate that.
Jeff, one thing I wanted to ask was, you forwarded some of those letters from folks, and this speaks both, I guess, to the Williston path, but also just in general. If it would be helpful to sort of have anything more formal from us as kind of a letter of support or anything like that.
I think
what?
I think it depends on the fate of the Williston Ave bike lane is unclear at the moment. Right now we have funding still through that grant to repaint the lines back to the way they were. And there is an emphasis being placed on doing that while we have the funding. It's not the cheapest thing you would imagine to repaint the lines. I mean, it's definitely a couple $1,000s. That what we may repaint the lines back to what they were just because we have the funding to do it now. But I think to your point is any future work, I definitely want to, that was one thing that I learned, is that I want to do a better job of creating the support sort of network for these projects. That was what I did not anticipate, the level of negativity about that project. I didn't gauge that properly. So what I am doing is internalizing that and learning that for any, and I hope that it's learning on this kind of smaller test run, because that's all it was totally temporary. It was a test run. Learn from that for these bigger projects, sort of how critical and important it will be for there to be people ready to, I think the thing that is the most is to counteract some of the craziness that happens on social media, and then do some more promotion. The letters of support, the letters against the project, they're pretty rational, but they were pretty concentrated on terms of topic, in people who lived on Wilson Ave. Even though we did write a letter to them, we did show them plans and gave them 2 opportunities to chime in before we did it. Clearly wasn't enough. That it still created those reactions. So the one thing, Scott, which I tried to pose as maybe a future question, I think we have a little bit of time before there's another bigger project, but the rail trail committee, I know, focuses on the rail trail as it should and has done so great with it over the years, is how might we build broader support for branching off from it? So I think we heard like this idea of these connectors, they're not going to be called the rail trail, and would they require either another body or another set of people who might use them? Like, so I'm thinking of the schools and really building more of a coalition with teachers, school administrators, and that kind of thing. So I think those are things that we should talk about in the next, several months to a year.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's with that in particular, you were talking about repaint, and I know that negative reactions are It seems like it was big. I, I couldn't, when I look at the safest way there, I still think there's a way to do that on that side. And so I guess spending money to move it back, if when we, at the end of the day, when we're doing studies too, then that might suggest moving it back to where it is now with a separated path on that side, because there's no curb cuts for kids. I guess that's just something to consider. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I do think if you look at, I'm thinking of like, and Easthampton's not New York, but like when I lived in New York on Prospect Park West, there was a big project to put in a separated bike lane. That was a two-way lane. And they put it on the side where the park was, because on the other side, there was all the curb cut. There's all the streets going in, just like there, and it faced resistance, and a lot of these things face resistance. And I think that's not, and I think this is going to come up more, and I know the people that, Wendy and Barb and, Steve, I know you talk about resistance from people's backyards when the rail trail was going in, and people being resistant to the rail trail going in. So that's, I don't think that's, that's going to be something that happens, but I do think we can, there's ways to build, to lessen that and to show. And I guess that's what I was trying to speak to with this group, just, if to have that in your pocket, sort of a formal, like, we support, even just in general, the more, expansion of safe spaces to ride in Easthampton.
Yeah. I mean, Scott, I appreciate it. And it was a learning experience for me. It's very weird for me to say this, but I mean, we could literally call off the line painting and have it stay. Obviously there's not much that would happen in the winter, but it would be more for next spring and next summer, to keep it maybe without the delineator cones, those orange cones. That was one area of specific comments, because I've driven it, I drive that road every single day, and now that the cones are there, it feels different than it did with the cones. And if nothing else, we could potentially continue to just have more dialogue about it. If there's support, amongst a group like this to help with outreach and help explain the benefits, that might be worth pursuing. Just, if nothing else, just to educate people. I agreed with the rationale pushing it to that side. There's you have to cross the cemetery entrance. It's not a high traffic area, rather than 3 busy side streets and 17 driveways, and you're in the lane of travel with a car. It just, there were a couple people on Facebook who were really going at the 2-lane on one side as just going against most practices, but in this case, it seems much more protected, and like I think, like you said, much more suitable for less experienced riders. And then other people had made some comments about outreach and educating about what it is, and a couple signs along the way to better brand it. So I don't know. I guess I would ask these, the other people on the call, like, I mean, we have a chance to paint the lines back and just kind of ignore the experiment for a while, or keep it.
I think you made a very valid point before about the fact that the kids didn't go back to school and utilize it. And if you don't get a lot of talking about it without the cones there, it might be worth trying to let it stay a little longer, because the kids are gonna start to go back, and maybe when people see that the kids are riding their bikes and walking to school on it, that may change people's perspective a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I took it to heart. I took it to heart to your 2017 letter. And I mean, it was like when these discussions came up about this, I said, let's do the bike lane. And then, I learned a couple of things about not getting enough, commitment or support from this group beforehand. We had to pull the trigger really quick on that. But I'm interested in continuing to try. I don't know if the removal of the cones will be enough to resolve some of the people's concerns. We did describe it as temporary, and we did describe it maybe coming back in the next spring and summer. And if there's any hope for students to go back, and in the spring, perhaps that would be really good sort of anecdotal data just to see, you know, school-age children using it.
I drove down it just the other day after the cones came down, and I have to say that I was like, whoa, okay, this is it feels less claustrophobic without the cones. But I thought it still was good that it was delineated off on the side, because I was like, well, this seems better to me. It seemed, I don't know, something about those cones all there made it seem more narrow. With
Right.
just the painting on the street, it doesn't seem as bad. But that was just me.
And you might want to remember Mass Bike is a good resource too, you know, in terms of getting support or information or advice. I just feel like their authority is a little bit broader than ours, and they might be helpful.
I think he's talking about more like support from the area, the people who live around there, right? I mean,
well, I mean,
kind
I think support from a group like this would be helpful to help talk to some of those people. As one person, you know, I kind of was getting pretty bombarded, and I didn't build a support network for other people to help educate and respond to some of that. So it feels overwhelming, kind of being the the one person who's getting all that. Although, you know, we talked to DPW, we talked to public safety, we talked to them. I mean, everyone was on board with trying it, and public safety in particular was definitely something where I think instead of potentially spending time with this group, which I probably should have, we spent time with public safety, the fire department, you know, EMS and police department all looked at it, looked at the dimensions and compared the width of the street to other streets and had no issues. So we did that kind of due diligence to show that public safety wasn't going to come out and say that the road felt too narrow. It was more just driver perception. I think just changing the way a driver focuses on the road it's apparently a big deal. So
I actually think that Mass Bike is a really good resource, and it might be worth reaching out to them because they are really knowledgeable. First of all, they probably have been involved with projects like this before all over the state, but they are also really good at outreach and reaching a lot of people and making them aware of things of this nature. It's kind of what they do.
right.
So
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, that was the pivot we had to make when it was clear that the school wasn't going to open, and we I chose to pivot this to, you know, access to the park, basically to access Nonotuck Park. But that it's definitely not as effective as saying this was going to be the safe route to school, or, you know, one of the options that a student could take to get to school. That just didn't happen.
right. Yeah.
If you can buy a little time and bump it to spring, I think there's, you know, it just seems like you did a lot of work with it and you gave it a lot of thought, you know, and you got people involved. Like, if you could bump it to spring and see if you can keep the cones down and over the winter, and, you know, and just to buy little time to reapproach. I think that would be fantastic. I'd love, you know, I would put forth that resolution as a committee that we would support that. I don't know if we need you know, to say that this committee would support that, if that would be helpful. But
Well, I think it's helpful. I don't think you need a formal thing at this moment. I mean, what I would do from here is I would talk again to the director of DPW, just to make sure that he would be okay. And previously he was, and I, you know, based on all that input, I was the one who kind of talked about repainting it. And so I would do a little discussion with him to see where he stands and if he still thinks it's viable to keep it for you know, a couple more months and getting into the spring and summer. And then I think the real action would be kind of coming out in the spring with some additional support and a little bit more public outreach and education around it, including city council members, because I think they started to get some of that feedback as well. So I'm willing to, if I can stop the repainting at this point, I'll try. And then I'll come back to the rail trail committee and we can have some other discussions in, you know, in February or something, or March when people are coming out of their cocoon
I
and
would
looking
say-
for
I would say to
exercise.
the people that you can't, it's too late to paint. So the weather's not good enough. So we're gonna have,
It
Yeah.
might be. It might be. The contractor actually never said that they would get out there, but we were asking them about it, the feasibility.
And I think you mentioned a good point before about that if it became a more permanent thing, that there would be like some signage. And I think that's something to think about if it's going to stay, even temporarily at this point, that the signage might help people to accept it more too. If you could come up with a cool name that was something like Safe School Passage, or, you know, really like literally telling people what it's for, saying
Right.
like, well, this is for the kids to get to the school. It's just that, you know, school didn't come in.
what
So
about like some, you know, if it was to stay, I think you would need some like decal things, like bike things on the actual road,
Yeah.
just because.
Yeah, I think that was one of Scott's early observation, is that it wasn't marked well enough to some people really probably wouldn't even know what it was. Yeah. So
Okay.
Well, if you want to come back and, well, it would be to the regular meeting, but we can keep that in the back pocket for the moment.
yeah, I would like to. I mean, I'll see what I can do to keep it in, and then just look for spring, like, you know, springtime outreach to just keep people trying to ride it.
Okay. All right, Jeff, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Jeff.
thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I mean, I'm really excited about the prospect of continuing to make connections from the bike path. I think it's so logical to me, and I talk about it all the time. So the couple things I have mentioned is that it is really, it's an equalizer where it will be equal for people in other neighborhoods if they can get onto the bike path. You know, and then if they can get to the school, then we've really made things a lot more equitable in town for people to have a non-car way to get to the school. And I'm, you know, whether or not however long I am fortunate enough to be the city planner, I mean, I think the construction of the new school is really just, it's an immense focal point for us to be focused on for many years, is to continue to build connections to that school. That school's not going to go anywhere once it's built. And I think we have kind of a lot of work to get people there in as many ways as possible. So, like, you know, the car is important and the roundabout will help with that. But then getting people on Park Street, you know, like, I do see those sidewalks as another potential future projects to upgrade the sidewalks on Park Street, because they're rough and it's not the most pleasant way to get to the school. And then any off-road paths, any paths through Nonotuck. I mean, the vision that you guys have had since the master plan and the open space plan, it makes total sense to me now, and especially with the school under construction, there's going to be strong momentum in the next couple of years and I think the last thing I'll just say is I believe that the grant narratives that I've been putting together and basing it on these plans and this foundation and constructing the new school, I think it's a really compelling argument in the next sort of 2 to 5 years to just try to acquire as much grant funding as possible towards getting to that school, because I think after a certain point it won't be as compelling. So I think there is really going to be, and we're coming up pretty quick on it, I think there's going to be a really important time to really focus on getting people to that school. I don't think most people realize, you know, that it's happening so fast, and then it's going to be here one day and we're going to be kind of stuck.
there is a lot of validity to what you're saying about the fact that if you get the connector coming through the woods from Williston and then the other one coming from Nonotuck, okay, all those neighborhoods and people back there will be walking and biking in instead of driving a car or a bus to that loop up front. And that, it's hard to like convey that, what that does to the people in the town maybe, but like, you know, taking all those cars out of that loop and having people who live on the other side of that school through those neighborhoods in the woods back there, is a huge safety factor.
Yeah. And it's the age range that's going to be at that school too. So you can really hit a lot of different ages. You will have ages that can ride by themselves to that school. And, it's you'll have elementary school kids who would potentially do it with their parents. And so, and then I just think it's awesome. I whether or not I'm involved, I've really taken on sort of the energy from like Scott and John. I mean, I've really taken this on. Like I see the huge value moving forward of connecting to that new school. And it'll be equal for other people if we can get some of the more distant connectors situated as well. Then it's really going to be pretty awesome.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
All right.
Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks
Okay.
for.
Yeah, let us know
All
how
right.
we can help.
Yep.
Yes.
Thanks. All right. Great. All right. Well, thank you. And we'll speak soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
So the only other Friends item was, Barb, are we going to redo our listserv?
Well, unfortunately, we lost Tim Carey, who was here to
know.
talk about that.
I know.
Oh.
So unfortunately, he was the one that was why he was here.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to take so long to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
through Jeff. So yeah, the Yahoo groups is going away. I think end of the year, and it was getting pretty outdated, and I wasn't even sure I hadn't been able to put anything on it lately. So an idea came up that we should try to have another sort of group, a listserv or something like that, that would replace the Yahoo listserv. And I think Tim was willing to take that and work on it. My thought was that we shouldn't just take all the emails from the Yahoo listserv because they're very outdated and it's just really old, that we could start fresh with the names we're getting now from the people who are renewing their membership, who put down email addresses. Because if they put their email addresses on that, I would assume they want to stay in touch. So
You also can do an email blast out to the Yahoo people and say,
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you want to
we
stay on
shouldn't
this
just drop
list?
them, Barb. Yeah, what if people want to?
yeah,
You
there's a
just say,
lot
do
of,
you want to stay on this list? And
Yeah.
if so, click this link and it'll put you on the new list.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think Tim was willing to work on that. So even though he's not here at the meeting, we can email him. And I mean, it definitely, we have to move to something else. And I guess.
So maybe if you give him the old list and he can send that blast out and.
Yeah, I don't even know if I could get it. I'd have to look. The last time I tried to send out a message through that, I couldn't figure out how to do it. It's like they're already shutting it down.
Oh, really?
But
I don't have a master list somewhere of all the emails that you amassed over the years.
no, because every year they change, and I mean I have emails, but I would only feel comfortable giving the current members, because emails change, people change. And I mean, I have some, but as far as how accurate they are, I'm not sure. I think it might be time to kind of start fresh. That's my thought. I mean, if I can figure out how to give him access to, or if we can do something from the Yahoo one, telling people what we're planning on doing. But I wouldn't just take that blanket list and just go with it, because there's tons of people on there who are inactive, who aren't around anymore. So, but I mean, yeah, I wish he had stayed on because he was the one that was going to talk about it.
I guess I see no harm in sending out one last, like Steve
If I can
said,
figure out how to do it.
yeah, one
So-
last request. Tell them we're changing system, but we want to update the email. So please send us your current email that you want us to use.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So
So I don't know if you're willing to let Tim, who seemed interested in doing this, if he's still willing to do it, I can reach out to him by email and say, why don't you go ahead and look into it?
I'd love it if you would do that.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he was talking about using Google.
Yeah, the Google I mean,
something. Google Groups. was
yeah,
it?
we have through the Mass Town Clerks Association, we have a Google group. That's how we do it, and it works great.
All right, unless there's anything else, we can close this meeting and if you want to get on to the other meeting.
Okay.
So do I have a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
So moved. Second?
Oh, I didn't hear. Did you make a motion? Sorry,
Yes.
you got cut off. Okay, and seconded by Scott.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed, and that is the end of this meeting, and I hand it over to Barb for the other meeting.
Okay. Did I send out the September 21st minutes with the agenda as well?
I
Okay.
think you did, yeah.
Do I have a motion, or are there any corrections or comments about those minutes? Okay, do I have a motion to accept the September 21st meeting minutes?
I'll make a
make a
motion. Oh,
Okay, second. All right, all in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's see. Wendy, why don't, or let's do the talk about the trail name right now, because that maybe could be kind of quick and easy. Liz and Steve, you want to talk about that? The 4 names?
Yeah. So we got this group that is the communities along the trail, the New Haven to Northampton Trail. And they want to give the trail a single name. And I think everyone, or a lot of people, thought they were coming up with a brand new name for it, but then Liz unearthed, and I think Craig knew this already, and some other people, and then it was actually on the bridge itself. We already have a name for the trail. It's the New Haven to Northampton Canal, whatever the hell it is. But it's already named. It's in a couple of books, and so if we change it to something else, we're renaming it. So I think, I'm Liz, I don't want to speak for you, but I think we both agree it should stay that way. As you saw the email from Wayne, Northampton feels that, Craig feels that way. So I guess what I should have just done was ask you guys what name you wanted. But I guess I wanted to give you that background because personally, I don't think it should be renamed. I think it's a waste of time, and we should be moving on to more important things. But so
No,
anyway.
I have a really stupid question.
Yeah.
But where's the canal? I mean, is there?
There's actually a section of the canal. If you look on a map, like even Google Map, and expand it out, and if you look at the section right as you cross into Northampton, from our, you cross over near the second crossing of Ferry Street there.
Yeah.
On your left, at some point, there's part of that water is a stream, but further on, the stream pulls away, and it's the canal.
Was there actually a canal all the way from Northampton to New Haven?
Actually, there were 3 canals.
Oh.
And part of the reason, so the Connecticut people already have a name for their trail, and it's the Farmington Canal Trail or something like that, right?
Yep.
But that only applies to where that canal ended, which I think was maybe the Massachusetts line. Then there were 2 other canals going up from that point up to Northampton, and it all just formed one canal, but it was probably built in sections, and then it had different names.
But the reason that you don't see the canal in a lot of places anymore is because they built the railroad over where the canal was.
Right, and then people filled it in, like there's, it's a lot of it's paved over, and so a canal is an artificial waterway. So once you take away the water, it's just people fill it in, and
it used to be before the railroad, the canal used to be how they moved stuff around. They had horses on the side of the canal that walked and pulled stuff up the canal. That's how they moved
Ferry
stuff.
Canal. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. I mean,
Yeah, so next, if you ever, I don't know if you go on the trail anymore, but go on the trail, and you'll actually see the canal is there on your left as you're going up towards Northampton.
Is there any concern that it's too long of a name, though? I mean, you have Northampton.
I don't like, that's something I brought up, but once it was pointed out, well, it's already kind of named for one thing, but also the name is based on a historical precedent in that I think the canal at one point, once it became not three canals, but one unified canal, they actually named it the New Haven and Northampton Canal. So we're just piggybacking on that naming convention that already exists.
okay.
In terms of marketing, I think it's a mouthful.
It is, and Wendy, I said the exact same thing, and I guess the feeling was that to give it a sense of place. I mean, I did not argue strongly about it. I felt the same as you, but I came over to give it a really, people know what you're talking about, where it is.
That's true.
You know, and I don't. We're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna move the
Semantics.
needle off of those four choices. So I mean, that's, you know, and they all are that mouthful.
It took a lot to get it down to those four choices, let me
Yeah.
tell you.
As far as I'm concerned, we shouldn't even be. Anyways, okay.
Yeah.
So we should vote.
So do we
Tell
need,
us how you really feel.
do we need to take a vote on that, Steve, or is it just good enough for, I mean, what do we need to
If
do?
we have a consensus, if you guys want to go on with what Liz and I believe about keeping the name the way it is, then that's fine.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I'm not going to argue with Wayne Fiden and Craig De La Pena, I'll tell you that much.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, the guy, I from what I get from Craig, there's a little bit of proprietary part of the you know, the people in Connecticut may not like the fact that the name came from Massachusetts, you know, and they don't have any choice in it or something. So I don't know. I don't like that kind of politics, but
Hey, we're putting New Haven first. It could
right,
be-
yeah,
it could
right.
be Northampton and New Haven.
You're right. Good
Yeah.
point. Well, when we start arguing about it, I'll bring that up, Barb.
All right. Okay,
Okay, so we can report back to the Unified Trail group that we, because each town or each entity along the trail gets one vote. So we can report that the Easthampton section of the Manhan Trail votes for that. And we know that Northampton votes for it as well.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
sounds good. Wendy, well, we're kind of on the same topic. Do you want to talk about the map thing you sent today?
Right. So I shared it with all the committee members. Did everybody get that map, the New England Trail map? So Jeff McCullough wants to know, and I don't see any downside to it, putting our logo on that map.
Right.
No, that's a great thing.
Anybody have a
Yeah.
problem with that? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll tell him to go ahead. He didn't say we had to pay for it, right? I mean, I don't think it's
No.
buying an ad or anything, but
I was just getting permission.
yeah, that's my thought. Okay.
Wendy, do you have a good version of the logo to send to Jeff?
I'll check. I think I do, but I'll try to see if whatever I have is good enough. If not, I'll go back to Beverly and ask her if she has something,
Okay.
some other file, but okay.
All right. Okay, so that's those two items. I guess we can talk about a few trail issues. So Steve, we've already gone over some of your items.
Yeah.
I want to mention that the light on the tandem building, I did mention that that building is still Williston's. And I did mention it to them last Wednesday when I went for my weekly COVID test. And I'm going again on Wednesday, so I can, see if there's been any, I mean,
Great.
maybe it's just a light bulb. I don't know.
It could be because I went up and looked at it kind of, closely. There's two lights on the same fixture. One is pointing towards the parking lot and one pointing toward the trail. So I think just the light bulb is probably burned out. Could be all it is.
Yep. So I did mention it to Gina and Gina Terrell, who works with Chuck McCullough, and she said she would look into it. So if I see her, hopefully on Wednesday, I'll ask her again.
Okay.
The metal bar in the mowing area, when we were down at the recycling center on Saturday, I saw it there.
Oh, wow.
So
Great.
yeah, the DPW, they went out and got it. They said it was really heavy. So I
Yeah.
don't know how it ended up where it was.
I was wondering that too, because it was, when I saw it, it was actually touching the trail. So I thought someone could clip their wheel on it. So I went to move it and I'd move it like 2 or 3 inches, but then the other end would move back halfway to, as far as I moved it the first time. So I'd move one end a couple inches, then the other end, and finally get it far enough away but I knew.
Yeah, they said it was really
wasn't gonna
heavy.
lift it up.
They said if anybody wants it, you can
What
go
is
grab
it?
it, but otherwise it's going in the metal
Yeah,
bit.
but what is it? What purpose does it have?
Oh, it was a piece of rail.
Like it was
It's
bent
so
in a
curved,
circle and
Yeah. Yeah. I looked at it. It was actually a piece of railroad,
Yeah.
not the tie, the actual metal.
But I mean, for the size of it and the way that it was curved, I couldn't imagine any useful purpose it could be used for,
I have no idea.
Yeah. Huh.
So that's gone.
Okay, great. Oh, you know what? That was fast. And you know what else? That was just kind of funny, Barb. When I first sent out that email, at first, like no one replied. So I'm wondering, well, did people, even, read it or whatever? But then a couple of days later, I went by and I went to check on, that telephone pole that was in the middle of the trail, and it was gone. I'm going, wow, they read my email and took out the telephone pole. But of course, I knew that really nothing ever happens that fast. So I knew that wasn't it. But
because there was a pole in the middle of the path, and I saw it on social media, but that must have been at least a month ago, and then it was gone. So I don't know.
That was a different pole.
It was a different one? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the one sort of toward the end of the trail, just as it approaches Ferry Street going towards Route 5, behind the American Legion.
yeah.
Oh.
This was actually in the new trail, at right where it starts. There was a telephone pole right in the middle, and I like I had said, it wasn't wide enough to safely go around on the right hand side, but some kid would try it. So it was an attractive nuisance, but now it's gone. So
that's gone. Yep. So the status of those trees that are still there, right, David?
I think the last time I was down there was Wednesday or Thursday last week, and they were still there.
Okay. So
which trees now?
Are these the ones that are leaning like that?
Yeah, they're leaning against sort of the fence behind, sort of toward the rear of the Ferry Street project.
Yep. Okay, so I've had a couple conversations with Mike Michon about the trees. First time was, like when we were first talking about it, and he is gonna pay for like $1,000 worth of it. He's gonna do that. And he had talked to Chuck Shea about it, but this was before, while they were still working on it down there. And the problem with that is getting there. It's a kind of tricky spot to get to. So Mike called me again last Thursday, I think it was, and he asked me if I had heard anything from Chuck, because he said they need to talk about how he's going to get in there and take care of that. So I emailed Chuck and I haven't heard back. So I think tomorrow I'm gonna try to give him a call because Mike wants to get him taken care of too. And so what it would end up doing is he's gonna pay, I think, $1,000 and we would pay for the rest because some of the cleanup is further down on the trail. So that's a good deal. So we'd end up paying, I think it was like $500 or something like that. So,
Okay.
but, yeah, we just need to get the two of them connected so they can figure out how Chuck can get his equipment in there and not rut up the new grass. And, you know, it's a tricky spot to get to.
So maybe they should come in from the other direction.
Well, they would all have to come in all the way from Mechanic Street, I think. Or, I mean, not Mechanic, Goslin Drive.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
kind of,
it just might be easier that way. It's longer, but it might be more straightforward.
Yeah.
The other thing is I noticed as they're leaning, it's more propped up by sort of the fence there and the fact that sort of it's several feet lower than the level of the rail trail. It's not really that the trees they're leaning toward are supporting them. So if we get a heavy snow,
yeah.
they could come down to the trail.
Yep, it needs to be dealt with, and I think Mike wants to get it taken care of too. So I figured I would email him and hoping to hear back, but I haven't heard. So I'm going to call tomorrow and leave him a message, and let the two of them kind of figure it out. So that is that. I had sent out the letter that we got from the kiosk company about us. So did everybody have a chance to take a look at that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess they want everybody who has a kiosk to inspect the posts to make sure they're not rotting off underground. Unfortunately, Peter, are you on board here? Are you, Peter? Oh.
He's on mute. Peter, I think you're on mute.
You got to unmute yourself, Peter, if you're still there.
I don't know. So anyway, it's bricked all around the posts, and Annette and I were looking at it while we were doing our daylily cutback this past weekend. And I did reach out to George Labrie to see how difficult it would be for him if he was able to come in and take some of the bricks out. And I think that he'd be willing to do that. I think maybe we should try to take a look at it. They are asking for us, all the places, to make sure they're not dangerous.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I spoke with George last night.
Oh, you did? Great.
And he said he had my same thoughts, is that there's a lot of gravel that got backfilled around those posts because he was there for that project, remember?
Yep.
So he doesn't think there's a lot of moisture trapped in there. And then also with the, not that it probably shouldn't be inspected, but, and then also that the brickwork on the top, and especially being underneath already the overhang, that there isn't going to be probably a whole heck of a lot of damage to raise an emergency concern about that.
Okay. All right. That's a good point. I mean, I know we were going to just reach out to the company and kind of tell them how it was situated, but I guess we could, and I hadn't done anything, but we probably could do that and see what they say. Yep. Okay. Another thing, I sent out some pictures today. There was a tree that came down near the South Street intersection. The DPW did cut it up, so the tree's out of the way, but it did take down 3 sections of fence on one side and 1 section on the other side. I sent out some pictures. Wendy, you have them there.
Yep. Oh, do you want me to
Sure, if you can.
Let's see. All right. So you didn't send them to everybody, or?
I think did I send them to everybody? I think I did. Maybe that's good enough.
Did everybody see them?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, basically you just showed the couple of sections of
right.
fence. Yeah.
So Rich and I looked at it and he said it's going to need to have one new post because one post broke off, and then 3 sections of, what is it, 6 feet, Peter? 6-foot railing.
Yes.
Yep. So like 3 sections of that. The other side, I don't really know if it's the drop off that the fence, it's really, I don't think the part that came down really needs to be replaced. That's my opinion. Because the drop off is, there's still fencing. You know,
Yeah, without being there, Barb, I did assume the same thing,
yeah,
that it started to drop off, you know, pretty far behind the fence within reason. I didn't feel that it probably needed to be replaced neither.
right on that side. I think maybe it could just be neatened up, that end, just so there's no sharp edges, and then just say good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to have my husband have to do, all the work. I think he's willing. I think what this kind of leads me to say is that we need to, I think, have some sources of people that I can call on to do things like carpentry repairs and stuff like that. Maybe we need to put it out on social media to get some volunteers to do certain specific kind of work. So if something happens, I can call somebody and I don't have to rely on Rich or people that I don't want to take advantage of.
Yeah, I feel bad, but that those days are over for me. I had a real bad day today, so.
Yeah. No, understood, Peter. I wasn't sure. So.
Yeah, Barb, I mean, absolutely. There's no reason why we can't. Again, if we had that list, we could send a blast out to the friends and ask for somebody to step up and help out.
Yeah, or even putting it on the Facebook page.
Yep.
The Facebook. But, I was thinking maybe Kevin Mulligan might be here tonight, because I know he might be able to. If I think Rich would be willing to do it if he had somebody else that could, the two of them could work on it together. It'd be easier because the fence is long and it's easier with 2 people. So,
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so Annette and I, we did do the daylily cleanup this past weekend. So you probably have noticed lately that the trash had started to be a real problem if people were on the trail.
Yes, yeah.
Yep. So apparently there was a bit of a misunderstanding, because Riverside has been doing our trash forever, but they also were picking up trash in the downtown area. And the DPW, the city, they decided that they were going to start to do it themselves. So Williston took that to mean all of the cans, including the ones on the bike path. So they hadn't, they thought they were done with it. So the one by Tandem was really, really overflowing, and they did go down and empty it. And so we've talked to Riverside, and they're gonna start up again. But there has been a suggestion that trash can down near Tandem, right across from where the dollar store is, it might be worthwhile to look into moving that. Maybe down a little bit further towards, like not right across from the dollar store, because I think it's getting a lot of use from people who just go and just dump stuff. So it is cemented in. I have to talk to the DPW about it, because they're going to have to do it if it's going to be moved. But
which way would you move it? Towards Union Street or towards Payson?
Towards Payson.
Okay.
Because we have the trash can down by Union Street. And then, so if we even just went a little bit further, down, even kind of near where the Tandem window is, kind of near where that brickwork is. Annette and I, we were kind of looking at it this weekend and
Well, there's a trash can right by the tandem window already.
nope. No, there's
Yeah,
nothing.
there is.
No. No.
Isn't there a little trash receptacle like in the little park area next to Tandem?
Oh, there's several within the park area, and then there's our trash can, and then the next one isn't until the public safety complex. So if it could be moved down just a little bit, so it's not quite so obvious from the parking lot, you know, I think it might, not that it would solve the problem of it being a dumping spot, but it would kind of get it out of the sight line.
Maybe you should move it down even a little further past, you know, there's a little walkway that takes you into the tandem between where that line of trees end.
Yeah, so somewhere along in that general. So it's kind of like halfway between the Union Street one and the public safety one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Okay. That sounds.
I mean, we're not going to do that. It actually was suggested to me by the DPW. So they might be willing to do it for us. If not now, maybe in the spring.
Mhm.
But anyway, the trash situation is now, it should be better again. Yep. So.
And do you have the sign on there too, on your list?
Oh, I forgot that. So that's the one at Coleman Road?
So I went to Coleman Road to take pictures for, the newspaper, the Reminder wanted pictures. And I wanted a good sign of our green and white sign that hangs at the end of every major intersection. And it was kind of a rainy, cloudy day, and it looked really dingy. And I got up close to it and I realized how dirty, all the white background part was really dirty. And I had a little clean, I was trying to clean it, but I couldn't really reach. It was too high for me, but I think probably all of them need a good scrubbing. And I don't know if we can put out a call for volunteers. If everybody takes a sign, probably wouldn't take more than 15 minutes to do it, but
yeah, I have to say, I looked at the one at South Street and it's totally clean.
I wonder if it's because the Coleman Road is shaded and it might be a little bit of mold or mildew or something. I don't know.
It could be whether it's in direct sunlight or not, or if it's in a lot of shade. If it's in shade, you could get moss buildup and stuff too.
Yeah.
Oh.
But anyway, at least that one needs a cleaning, and I didn't know if anybody wanted to volunteer. If not, I can haul a ladder down there, and it's just out of my reach. I couldn't get up high enough to do it justice, but I don't know what the other ones look like, but
yeah, I did happen to notice that one at South Street, and I was like, wow, this one looks nice and clean.
okay.
I haven't looked at the rest of them, and the big one at Union Street, I was right next to it. I didn't notice that it was dirty, but
Okay.
It's actually similar to, I think, our truck crossing signs. I think one of them is, it looks really clean and one of them looks really bad. I'm not sure if it's the truck crossing signs themselves or two other signs down there, but I know in that area, similar signs, one looks pristine, one looks really grubby, so.
I'll take that. I'll take care of that.
you know, another sign that
Right.
we need to take off because it's, you know, that we got I think it's trail, it's a yellow plastic.
Yeah.
That thing is totally faded away. You can't even see what it says anymore.
Where is
The
that?
split.
It's
It used to-
yes, like Trails Merge or something like that.
We got it for free for something, and so we put it up. You know, it's no big deal. It didn't fit the design of our other signs anyway. So.
But
Yeah,
just so I'm clear, it's the kiosk, right, at Coleman Road?
No,
The
it's not.
map on it?
It's the sign, the green and white. It says Manhan Rail, it has our logo on it.
Hmm.
It's hanging
The
like a,
sign, not the kiosk.
correct. It's the sign, the green and white. It's some kind of plasticky.
I have, I always go that way to go grocery shopping, right? And
Okay.
I have spray goof off, that's like a spray bottle.
Yeah,
I would say
just test a small spot just to make sure
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it melts.
I think a good scrub brush and some hot
Okay.
soapy water or soapy water.
Okay, great.
I think I just didn't have anything with me except for my camera. But, speaking of signs, so we do have, sorry about that. That's my son calling. We do have signs for the National Recreation Trails that have to go up, and I can show them to you. And so this is one of them. And the other one
Is it metal?
is, no, they're plastic.
Oh, that's probably,
And we can get others. Do I have this upside down? Sorry.
oh yeah, that was the thing I gave you.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, where do we want to put these?
How many do you have?
We only have these two, but I think we can get more.
Can we just put it in the kiosk?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, good idea.
Well, we should put one in the kiosk, but do we want to put this somewhere? I don't know. We don't want to put both in the kiosk.
Well,
Big
the
one
bigger,
could go as a real sign.
Well, yeah, we've got 2 kiosks, right?
Where would we put that though, that it would not just, you know, I don't know how long it would hold up.
You think if we put it on
You
the
know what might work well? If you put that on the back of an existing sign. That way you have the metal sign and the plastics behind it on the other side.
could we put it behind one of the trailhead kiosks? You mean one of the ones from that Northampton did?
How do you attach it?
I don't know. Peter, do you know if we could attach something like this to the back of those kiosk signs?
what kiosk sign are we talking about?
The metal, well, I don't know what they're made of, the metal and plastic. The ones that have the little maps on them. Northampton has the same ones. They're at Coleman Road and at the V at Ferry Street.
Yeah, the backside's usually facing away from the
Right.
public
Yeah.
and everything else. I mean, it wouldn't be seen by much.
Well, unless you put it down at Coleman Road.
Coleman, it would be seen because you're approaching that circle.
Correct.
I'm confused. Are our kiosks full? There's a kiosk on Route 5 and there's a kiosk on Union Street. Why don't we just put them?
So I think we're
Yeah.
talking about two different things. I agree, the kiosks,
Yeah,
to me, the kiosks are the one at Union Street and the one at Route 5, but the
Yeah.
other little signs that are at the trailheads, I think that's another option.
That look like oil derricks.
Yeah, they look like oil derricks. The metal one, metal and
right.
fiberglass or.
They're not really kiosks, they're signs.
Yeah, no, but I don't understand, like, I don't know.
Well, first of all, that sign is too flimsy
Yep.
to just mount, obviously, to anything.
Yeah.
So like John said, it would have to be backed up with something. Now you've got to adhere that plastic sign to something more solid. And then at that point, it could be possibly bolted or screwed into the kiosk stand there, whatever you want to call it, down at the end of Coleman, as in one spot. There's a possibility to get it anchored there, but it has to be mounted to something. You
I mean,
can't put it.
this one might be small enough to go on a fence, right?
You put that on a fence probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible. I have tamper-proof screws for that because somebody would just unscrew it off. But yes,
But maybe.
You
and
know,
with the-
actually, come to think of it, sorry to interrupt, just
Okay.
for the kiosks, which are covered in plexiglass anyways, you could make photocopies of those signs, whichever size you prefer, and put those on there. So yeah, you're right.
That's
We
a
don't
great
need to put those in.
The problem with photocopies in the kiosk is that within probably a month or so, they're all gonna be faded.
Yes.
I mean, yeah,
Did
How
you try-
about if you can, does lamination help or does that?
yeah,
No.
I don't, things just, they get really, really faded.
Well, wait a minute, that our old trail map looks so good. It's been
That's
there
on the back.
for years.
Well, I think, let me look into getting more of these and want a few more little ones, and we can put one at each end and put this on the big one in the middle at Union Street. What do you think?
Yeah. Sure,
I
get
mean,
a bunch of them.
If we had some of the little ones, they could go on like 3 spots on the fence or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just put this at Union Street in
Right.
the kiosk. Okay. Sounds like a plan. Okay.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
I also spoke to George about the cracks. He has not had the time, obviously, to come out to take a look at those at the park. But he does want to hook up with me, but I mean, like, as you would expect, that guy runs ragged.
Yeah.
And obviously the days get darker earlier, but he does want to hook up with me. He's still interested in taking a look at it, but it's not going to happen, obviously, before the snow flies this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already booked out to August next year. And, but I asked him if he could use it as a fill-in between jobs, not do the whole section, but, just pick one route and cut it, and he sounds like that's something he would work with. So, I just waiting for him to tell me yes or no, and hopefully I have a good day and I can meet him out there to explain, what, and I don't have to tell him what to do, just where it is. His question was, where is it exactly?
The ones down by the Millside parking lot are pretty obvious. I mean,
Yeah. Or
They are.
somebody else could meet him too, Peter. If you don't feel up to it, that's fine. I would
David, you're pretty familiar with those.
Yeah.
do it, or I could do it.
Well, let's see how I do. Right now I'm going through a rough patch, but it just started yesterday. So yeah, let's see when he can make the time to be there, and then I'll go from there.
Okay.
All right.
Well, just holler if you need help. One of us can go out and meet him.
Okay.
Just one last thing. And we were down there doing the bay lilies. I think we are going to have to try to do a mulching this spring. So hopefully, I think of George because he was such a big help with that. Hopefully come May, we'll be able to have a work day out there. Cross our fingers. I mean, I think even if there was a chance for a work day and we all just stayed apart, and maybe by then we'll all be vaccinated. So, we'll see. But all right, so do we want to meet in December or do we want to hold off till January? I say hold
January's
off.
fine.
Oh, another thing, while you guys are thinking about the meet date, Kathy and I ran into Mike on the 3 Ferry Street project.
Mike
And-
Michon?
Huh?
Mike Michon?
Yeah, and he assured me that he plans on putting a spur behind his place, tying into the trail going through his property and coming out onto Ferry Street down low. And then, obviously connecting onto that glorified sidewalk, boardwalk thing.
I think I saw
Yeah,
you. guys.
Jeff mentioned that in the meeting.
Were you and Kathy down there last week?
Yes, we were. I had a good day, so I wanted to take a walk and see that project. So,
Yeah, I thought that was you.
oh, you saw me out there.
You did, yeah. I was glad to see you out there.
Yeah, I was trying to get some exercise.
Yeah.
There was others,
All right, so if we skip December,
Each set has 4 seasons, each set.
what like January 25th?
Sounds good.
Because is the 18th a holiday?
Yeah. th or 25th.
How does that look? Does it look okay?
Yep, you're talking about the 25th or the 11th?
The 25th.
25th looks good.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, let's give ourselves next month off.
Hey, so Barb, how's it been working with the new DPW? Obviously, I'm out of touch and links with people there now because of my situation, but are they've been cutting and mowing along the trail?
Oh yeah, they did all of that. They cut all along the whole trail and it looks great.
Nice.
Yep. They cut back. It took a while, but yeah, everything's real. As far as I know, the parts that I've seen. Anybody else have any experience of where they've been? But it looks good to me.
Yeah.
Greg is he's a good guy and he's good to work with.
Oh, nice. Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yep.
What's his last name, Barb?
Nuttleman. Yep.
So Steve and I will be going to the meeting of the Unified Trail Committee, the first, I forget what the day is, but the first week in December.
Oh, okay.
You're going to be able to come to that too, Steve?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll put our 2 cents worth in.
Great.
Where's that held?
It's a Zoom meeting.
Oh, okay.
And people from all the trail sections from here down to New Haven are all encouraged to participate.
Nice.
That's the good thing about Zoom,
Yeah.
You need to get people from a whole bunch of areas together.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Make it easier.
Meetings so far, so it's the start.
Cool.
Good. Thanks for doing that. That's great.
Yep.
all right, well, if nothing else is going on, I think motion to adjourn.
Move, we adjourn.
Second, all
Second.
in favor?
Okay.
All right, everybody have a nice, safe Thanksgiving and Christmas if we don't see you before
Happy
then.
holidays.
Yep. Stay well.
Hope you have a better day tomorrow, Peter.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll see. It's a doctor's appointment. It usually doesn't go well.
Well, our thoughts.
Okay.
Feel better.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.